Missed me again, number one, son.
But I won't miss this time.
Oh no! He's gonna blast President Lincoln!
Ha! I knew you'd risk yourself for Mr. Lincoln.
Previously on Haseo Reviews.
1997 was a major year for Mega Man, so what's the verdict? Well, in case you couldn't tell, I absolutely love this game, and I highly recommend it to anyone that's looking for a good adventure game for the good old PS1.
Adequate doesn't satisfy me, so I'm afraid you'll have to die.
Wait, what? Greetings everyone, old and new, welcome to Haseo Reviews. I'm in hell now, metaphorically and literally. Turns out that after Bayonetta shot me for not doing a good enough job at reviewing her games, I got sent to a special circle of hell exclusively inhabited by game reviewers who don't upload on a consistent basis. I know my room doesn't look any different, but trust me, it's hell. Why else would I hang up posters of DMC and... Mighty number 9? The only things I have down here are a stack of old games, some old game consoles, a phone that lets me contact people in the world of the living, and slow-as-ass internet supplied by Spectrum.
Back to the beginning.
Oh, and that happens every now and then. I swear I've seen that eye somewhere before. Anyway, let's see what's in the stack first. Gotta do something to entertain myself. Wait, Mega Man Legends, haven't I already reviewed this? Yeah, this was the first episode I ever did for Haseo Reviews. It got some pretty positive feedback at the time, but I guess it could use an update. At the time, I was blinded by my excitement over Mega Man 11 being announced, so I wrote the episode less as a proper critical analysis, and more as a retrospective of why it's one of my favorite games. I either forgot to mention any of its major flaws, or actively tried to downplay them so I could encourage more people to give this game a try. Looking back on it now, no matter how much positive feedback it got, I have to say that it failed in the context of a review. Not to mention my production values were absolute shit. I was nervous in all my commentary, I got story beats either wrong or out of order, and look at how stretched that footage is. Yeah, this definitely needs a redo. Let's turn our calendars back to the mid-1990s. The first generation of 3D-focused consoles had been on the scene for a few years by this point, with the Sega Saturn and Sony PlayStation launching internationally in 1995, and the Nintendo 64 following in 1996. Capcom, already a household name at that point for both their classic arcade games like Street Fighter and Ghosts 'n Goblins, as well as their mascot 2D platformer franchise Mega Man, which had steadily been going since 1987 and spawned a sequel series in 1993 with Mega Man X, had already made their mark on the 5th generation of consoles with home ports of their latest fighting games, as well as 2 Mega Man games, Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4, celebrating their mascot's 10th anniversary. However, the industry was quickly shifting its focus away from 2D side-scrollers and toward 3D games that fully took advantage of their platform's hardware, leading to an experimental period in gaming that I like to call the 3D jump. Classic game franchises had no choice but to either adapt, or risk being overshadowed by more technically impressive titles, urging developers to figure out how to reinvent their biggest names for the new generation of 3D gaming. Different companies took wildly varying approaches to this problem. Nintendo more or less invented the 3D platformer with Super Mario 64. Squaresoft, known in the modern day as Square Enix, transitioned Final Fantasy to a more cinematic experience with Final Fantasy VII, Bubsy 3D, and now it was Capcom's turn to transition from 2D to 3D. Development began on Rockman Dash, known in Western territories as Mega Man Legends, which sought to sort of mesh the two approaches to the 3D jump. Mega Man games had already dabbled with a more cinematic presentation, with Mega Man 8 and Mega Man X4 featuring both text-based cutscenes and anime cutscenes with—
But where is Dr. Wily?
That's a good question. We may be able to locate another energy emission from the radar room. When we find that meteor, we'll find Dr. Wily.
less than stellar voice acting. So the groundwork was already there for Mega Man Legends to push this harder than before. Rather than just making a simple go through 8 stages in any order followed by a final gauntlet approach that both the Classic and X series had made standard, The decision was made to set the game in a primitive attempt at an open world, similar to RPGs of the time. The concept of Mega Man acquiring new weapons as he progressed was kept, albeit in a retooled way, and precision platforming was abandoned in favor of exploring ancient ruins, seemingly inspired by the Zelda series, which was also due to make its own 3D jump around the same time. Rather than developing the game for 3 wildly different consoles with their own strengths and weaknesses when it came to graphical power and storage medium, Legends was developed solely with the PlayStation in mind, with its 3D capabilities easier to develop for architecture compared to the Saturn, as well as its CD-ROM format for games, allowing more space for music, voice acting, and full-motion video cutscenes compared to the Nintendo 64, which still used cartridges, allowing for significantly less storage space, making it the obvious choice. Mega Man Legends was released in 1998, and now we can actually get to discussing the game itself. Before the game starts, we're given a bit of opening narration that describes the setting of this world. In the far-off future, the world has been completely flooded, save for a few remote islands. After the discovery and subsequent harnessing of refractors, crystals found in the ancient ruins of the previous civilization that can produce large amounts of energy, a group of loosely connected explorers known as the Diggers was formed, who investigate the ruins in search of refractors to keep society running. It's not an easy job, however, as these ruins are guarded by Reaver bots, mysterious robots that viciously attack anyone who dares to enter their domain. Over the years, whispers of a treasure known as the Mother Lode began to spread, believed to be a refractor so powerful that it could power the world forever and make whoever was able to recover it rich and famous beyond imagination. After starting the game, we join a young digger named Mega Man Walnut, exploring a set of ruins in search of a refractor to sell. After retrieving the refractor and narrowly escaping a death trap in a sequence clearly inspired by Indiana Jones, we're finally given control. 3D games on the PlayStation in this era usually use one of 2 control styles for movement. You had the so-called tank control style used in games such as Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, and Jumping Flash, and 8-directional movement, as shown in the Crash Bandicoot series. Tank controls were more commonly used at the time, due to PlayStation initially shipping without any kind of analog joystick that would have made full 360-degree movement feasible. You would use the PlayStation's 4-button directional controls to move your character forwards and backwards, while using the left and right buttons to steer your character. It wasn't perfect, but it was the closest that PlayStation developers could get to the full 360-degree movement made easy by Nintendo 64, which shipped with an analog joystick on its controller. Games that used 8-directional movement, using Crash Bandicoot as an example, were often relegated to a series of linear start-to-finish hallways with enemies and obstacles sprinkled throughout, as only having 8 directions of movement would make precisely maneuvering your character in 3D space too difficult. Mega Man Legends, however, decides to mesh the 2 control styles together. Mega Man is able to move forward and backward, as well as strafe left and right with the D-pad and move diagonally as well. Turning is controlled with the top 2 shoulder buttons, allowing you to pull off moves that either control style on its own would have never allowed, such as circle strafing and easily dodging projectiles shot by enemies. Mega Man is able to both aim up and down and lock onto nearby targets with the bottom right shoulder button, with the face buttons mapped to jumping, firing his Buster Gun, using special weapons, or performing a kick when no special weapon is equipped, and one button used for context-sensitive actions like opening doors, flipping switches, opening treasure chests, and climbing ladders, as well as allowing you to perform a dodge roll or a slow walk, neither of which are ever really required outside of a single tutorial segment. I find that the controls are easier to adapt to than the old-school tank controls used by other 3D games of the time, but they aren't without their faults. Camera control is non-existent, which, combined with the limited draw distance of early 3D games, makes for several instances where you can't see enemy attacks if they aren't coming from directly in front of Mega Man. The game attempts to remedy this with an enemy detector that goes off whenever hostiles are nearby, but it doesn't make up for the lack of any ability to see what's not directly in front of you. The lock-on feature is useful for targeting enemies that like to move around quickly or cling to ceilings, but it also locks your movement, meaning that if you're holding down the lock-on button and an enemy attacks you, you're unable to move out of the way while holding it down. This, combined with most enemies being easy to outmaneuver as long as you run in circles around them, as well as the lack of any control over what targets you lock onto, makes the lock-on relatively useless outside of a few specific circumstances. As I briefly alluded to in my Bayonetta 2 review, I believe that tutorials in video games are best done when they present you with a basic version of every situation you're going to encounter in the main game, without overwhelming the player with more complex mechanics. Mega Man Legends manages to pull this off decently, but not without its fair share of hiccups. Every time you encounter a new mechanic, such as combat, interacting with objects, or equipping upgrades, you're abruptly stopped in your tracks so Roll, Mega Man's spotter, can narrate to the player what you're supposed to do, which removes a lot of the experimentation that good tutorials allow for. At the same time, you're gradually introduced to how basic combat works, how to open doors and treasure chests, how to equip upgrades and use items in your inventory, as well as telltale things to look for when the later parts of the game give you more freedom to explore as you please to find treasure. It also teaches you how equipping new parts to your Buster Gun is a key part of combat, as you discover upgrades that can alter how powerful your shots are, how fast you shoot, how many shots you can fire in one go, and how far your shots travel before disappearing, which you'll frequently need to adjust to meet different combat scenarios. This is all capped off with an easy boss fight against a giant Reaver bot that naturally teaches you to always stay on the move, use the wide open arenas that boss fights are commonly fought in to your advantage, and that each boss telegraphs all of its attacks well in advance, allowing you to recognize patterns and develop your strategy around that. After defeating the Reaver bot and escaping the ruins on his airship, the Flutter, we're formally introduced to Mega Man's two companions, Roll and Barrel Casket. Roll is a spotter and mechanic who acts as a bit of a surrogate sister to Mega Man and is in search of the Motherlode, hoping it will give her the answers to where her long-lost parents are. And Barrel is a professor and retired digger who provides guidance to Roll and Mega Man. An engine malfunction causes the Flutter to make an emergency crash landing on Cadillacs Island, the main setting of the game. After encountering the local police, Barrel heads to City Hall to explain the crew's situation, while Mega Man explores the nearby marketplace in the hopes of finding parts to repair the Flutter. Hang on, just gotta kick this can into the bakery first to get an easy 1,000 zenny. There we go. Now, after talking to the lady in the local junk shop, Mega Man is tasked with recovering her husband, who was last seen heading towards some nearby ruins. Mega Man easily rescues him from some Snake Reaver bots, and although the two junk shop owners aren't able to help Mega Man and Roll fix the Flutter, they repay Mega Man for his heroism by giving him both a mine parts kit and a broken down van. Gee, thanks. Also, when they ask you for your name, you can say your name is Hippopotamus for reasons that were probably lost in translation.
It's a pun, isn't it? Friggin' puns. Soon as you try translating them from Japanese into English, they go absolutely tits up.
Also, the market has both a fourth wall break, with a toy store selling a copy of Mega Man Legends, and a line of dialogue that I'm surprised made it through in an E-rated game, where Mega Man says to himself that it might be fun to look at some dirty magazines.
Good night, everybody.
After meeting back up with Roll, a police officer approaches the two and informs them that their citizen registration has been finished, allowing the two to freely explore the city. However, he warns them to be careful because pirates have been spotted somewhere around the island. This is immediately followed up on as soon as you set foot in the downtown part of the city, where a girl orders 3 robots to search for information, then rudely yells at Mega Man for eavesdropping. This is Tron Bonne and 3 of her 40 surf bots, who would go on to become sort of mascots for the Mega Man Legends franchise. Mega Man meets back up with Barrel to make sure he's safe and is introduced to Amelia, an old friend of Barrel's who is now the mayor of Cadillacs. All's well and good so far, until Mega Man sees Tron being chased by an angry dog. In the Japanese version, you were given the option to kick the dog away to rescue Tron, but Capcom USA removed it, leaving us with talking the dog down and convincing it to leave as our only option. Other instances of needless animal cruelty were also censored, such as removing the ability to shoot and kill birds, so good on the localization team. Tron runs off without so much as a thank you, but it's obvious that this one heroic act has made her instantly fall for the blue bomber. Mega Man meets back up with Roll to tell her that Barrel's fine when some airships fly over the city and begin attacking. It's also at this point when Mega Man gets his first of several special weapons, which Roll builds from the mine kit given to Mega Man from the junk store owners, a set of motion-activated landmines. Roll rushes in without thinking, worried about Barrel's safety, while Mega Man is forced to fight off the Bond's forces, first by destroying 3 mechs piloted by some surf bots navigated off the rest of the island and pass the key back and forth between each other, This is another simple boss fight, but made a bit trickier by all the mechs heading in separate directions, each mech having its own area that specializes in either attack, speed, or health, an endless supply of Drakh airships to fly in and distract you, the mechs being able to destroy the surrounding buildings, which you want to avoid at all costs. And as I already mentioned, they can pass the key back and forth between each other at complete random. After getting the key, Mega Man immediately faces off against Tron, piloting her own mech, the Feldinaut. This fight is your first real wake-up call to test how good you are at dodging fast attacks and aiming for specific weak points, as Feldinaut can only be damaged by shooting either its head or the exposed part of one of its legs. After Feldinaut is defeated, Tron congratulates Mega Man on defeating her, and a Drakh ship comes to pick her up and return her to the Bond's main airship. Mega Man progresses to the northern part of the city, where he first has to destroy all the robots and ships attacking before they can destroy City Hall, and then must face off against Bon Bon, the youngest of the three Bond siblings, although I don't believe the series makes it clear whether Bon Bon is a baby piloting a mech, or a mech programmed to act like a baby. Bon Bon is a much tougher battle, with his homing rockets being difficult to dodge and his tactic of always staying close to you making it difficult to outmaneuver him. After beating him, we're shown a cutscene introducing Teasel Bon, the oldest of the Bond siblings, the leader of their pirate gang, and the most entertaining character in the franchise due to his voice actor, Robert Smith, delivering a delightfully hammy performance that he was clearly having way too much fun with. It's a shame he ended up being a pedophile. After learning from the local news that Mega Man successfully stopped the Bonds from destroying the city, Teasel decides to use his most powerful mech, the Marl Wolf, to dig up the island's buried treasure and destroy Mega Man if he tries to interfere. We're also shown that Teasel isn't just a card-carrying villain like previous Mega Man antagonists Dr. Wily and Sigma were, as he briefly ponders whether Tron is safe or not, showing that underneath all his strongman gusto, he deeply cares about the well-being of his siblings. It's subtle, but a welcome change from the more one-dimensional bad guys that Mega Man presented us up to this point. Mega Man heads to City Hall to check on Beryl, who's thankfully still safe, but the town's inspector informs Mayor Amelia that the Bonds are digging up the northern forest. Amelia orders the inspector and police force to arrest the pirates, but with this being a Mega Man game, Mega Man is wise enough to know that a simple police force isn't equipped to face this kind of threat, and goes into the forest himself to finish off the Bonds. First, Mega Man has to fight his way through the squad of tanks and cannons that the Bonds have set up to keep out any interlopers before finally reaching Teasel. This boss fight with the Marl Wolf is our toughest challenge yet, because rather than a straightforward shoot it until it blows up battle, there's a slight puzzle element. The Marl Wolf is coated in heavy armor that can't be penetrated by any of Mega Man's weapons, and it's too big to simply aim at its weak point, the hatch on the back of its head. First, Mega Man has to damage its tread, significantly slowing it down. Then, he must climb the surrounding cliffs and jump onto the Marl Wolf's back, firing shots at the hatch whenever it opens while dodging Teasel's attempts to knock Mega Man off the Marl Wolf. With enough trial and error, you can easily recognize when and where to dodge to avoid getting smacked away by the Marl Wolf's arms, allowing you to easily defeat the boss in no time. After Teasel is defeated and evacuated back to the Bond mothership, Mega Man returns to City Hall, where Amelia, realizing that the Bonds are searching for the island's legendary treasure, tasks Mega Man with exploring the 3 sub-gate ruins scattered around the island, opening the main gate ruins that supposedly house the treasure, and recovering it before it falls into the wrong hands. With that, we're finally given a bit of freedom to explore. Roll also fully repairs the broken van, turning it into a support car with a mobile workshop built in. As Mega Man finds scrap parts either by exploring ruins, looking in trash cans and boxes, or being awarded them by completing side quests, he can give them to Roll to potentially turn them into new inventions, ranging from special weapons like missile launchers, grenades, and machine guns, to powerful buster upgrades, to pieces of armor that Mega Man can equip to either protect him, like his iconic helmet, or enhance his abilities, like leg parts that allow him to jump higher, or boots with built-in skates that allow him to move at high speeds by holding down the circle button while standing still.
It's Heelys, and it's all about fun.
The support car also acts as a fast travel system, allowing you to essentially teleport to nearly any major area of Cadillacs. There are plenty of side activities to do as well, from competing in game shows to a series of time trial obstacle courses, and the biggest one, donating money to rebuild parts of the city that were destroyed in the Bond's attack, some of which will open up new side quests for Mega Man to participate in, like helping the inspector with his investigations, or upgrading the hospital's equipment to heal a young girl with a serious leg injury. You can even find a couple of seemingly useless items like a flower that you can give to Roll, which she'll proudly display in her room once the flutter is repaired. There's also a potentially interesting but ultimately pointless morality system, where performing good deeds makes Mega Man's armor lighter in color, while performing bad deeds, which in the censored international version amounts to kicking too many cans into the bakery, kicking soda machines to get free drinks, and stealing a whopping 200,000 zenny from some servbots who were mistaken for bank robbers when they were really just trying to start up a burger joint, turns your armor darker. It sounds neat in concept, like an early version of what BioWare would later implement in the Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect games, but nothing noticeably changes besides your appearance, and it has no effect on gameplay or story, so it's ultimately a wasted opportunity. Zenny can also be used to upgrade your special weapons at Roll's workshop and buy items at the junk store, such as an increase to your maximum health, or a refillable canteen that allows you to heal whenever you want, or buster upgrades, body armor that reduces how much damage you take. On the way to the first subgate, Mega Man has to deal with another squad of Bond tanks, with Roll providing backup in the support car. After destroying all the tanks and breaking down the gate the Bond set up to block access to the subgate, we enter the first of our main ruins. The objective here is simple. A refractor is located at the entrance, but is guarded by a force field. To lower the force field, you have to collect 3 starter keys, hidden in 3 specific locations in the ruins. You can also find upgrade parts and a few treasures by exploring off the beaten path or by examining holes in the walls, which stays true for the rest of the ruins in the game. After finding the 3 keys and lowering the force field, Mega Man safely retrieves the refractor. It's big enough to be used as a power source for more basic machinery, but unfortunately it's too small to fix the flutter. The next subgate is located off the coast of Cadillacs on a remote island, so we have to find a boat to get there, leading us to Uptown. Uptown brings us not only the boathouse and the TV station where you can play minigames for money and upgrade parts, but also a new side quest at the museum, where you can bring treasures found in the various ruins to the curator to identify and put on display, attracting more patrons at the museum. This ultimately leads to a girl offering you a cursed gem when you find and donate every treasure, which ends up being a component for the game's best weapon that I'll discuss later. Back on track, Mega Man finds out from the owner of the boathouse that the Bond stole all of his boats, except for the one that needed to be repaired. Luckily, Roll is able to fix it and power it with the refractor we found in the last dungeon, leading to a sequence where Mega Man has to destroy the Bond's boats and airships while making sure that the boat he's on doesn't take too much damage. This is another segment that really tests a specific skill that you should have developed by playing the game, as the boat moves on a set path and Mega Man can only turn and shoot, unable to dodge enemy fire. You have to aim your shots well enough to destroy both the enemy mechs and the missiles and torpedoes that they fire at you. If the boat runs out of energy, you die, leading to another complaint that I have with this game. Death is far too punishing, as you have no extra lives or option to continue from a previous checkpoint. Dying kicks you back to the title screen and forces you to reload your save file, meaning that if you've ignored Data, the dancing robot monkey, all this time, you'll have no choice but to start from the very beginning of the game. This isn't as big of an issue now in the age of hard drives and emulators, but back in the day when you had to buy expensive memory cards in order to even save your progress in the first place, and PlayStations were sold without one included, this led to endless frustration in my youth until I was able to convince my parents to finally buy me a memory card. This isn't an issue exclusive to Mega Man Legends. In fact, it plagued a lot of classic PlayStation 1 games, but it's an issue that I feel only exists as a way to force you to go out and buy a memory card. Anyway, tangent over. After destroying all of the boats, the Bond siblings themselves return, piloting a huge frog mech that chases after the boat. Thankfully, you're given the option to retreat, which refills the boat's energy, gives you a chance to save and switch your equipment, and even lets you continue straight at the boss fight when you go back out on the lake. This is a much simpler fight compared to the battle against the boats preceding it, consisting of a chase sequence where all you have to do is shoot the torpedoes that the mech fires at you, leading up to the actual fight. Here, your boat circles the mech, and you have to shoot and destroy all of the mech's weapons before it finally exposes its weak point, allowing you to finish it off. After another cutscene, we arrive safely at the second subgate, which once again has a refractor guarded by a force field that requires 3 keys to activate it. By now you'll have the high jump boots, so the ruins have a lot more verticality and platforming involved than the previous subgate, culminating in a boss fight against a giant Reaverbot who can only be damaged by shooting at its head. After destroying the Reaverbot and leaving the ruins, we finally have a refractor big enough to fix the flutter. After Roll repairs the flutter, which becomes her new base of operations, although you can still call the support card anytime you need to get around the island, the flutter is partially explorable, limited to a main room with a TV and a soda machine in it where you'll always find Barrel from now on, Roll's bedroom, Barrel's bedroom, and Mega Man's bedroom. By talking to Roll, you get the option to fly to the third subgate, which was previously inaccessible due to Teasel digging up all the land around it during the siege on the city. The third subgate has what appears to be some kind of control room in it, with instructions that talk about Eden and prototype Anther units, something neither Mega Man nor Roll have heard of. Regardless, this control room is what's keeping the main gate shut, and to open it we need to find 3 keys. Okay, could the developers just not think of anything else to have the player do in the subgates? There's an extra step involved this time, however, as certain parts of the ruins can't be accessed because the power is out, requiring Mega Man to find and activate the main generator. This ultimately culminates in a boss battle against 3 wolf-like Reaverbots, and Mega Man finally opening the main gate. Mega Man and Roll set a course for their landing spot outside the city, but are ambushed by the Bond's mothership, a gargantuan aircraft armed to the teeth with all sorts of weaponry, the Gesellschaft. With no way to shake their pursuers, Mega Man is forced to fight against the flying battleship, in a sequence similar to the boat section, although Mega Man is able to move freely this time, meaning you now have 2 ways of getting a game over, either running out of health or letting the flutter take too much damage. Mega Man has to destroy all of the Gesellschaft's weapons, as well as disable its engines before finally destroying its weak spot, the skull emblem on the front of the ship. The Bonds aren't going to give up even with their mothership destroyed, however, as they escape in a flying mech and begin attacking the Flutter in a last-ditch attempt to destroy Mega Man once and for all. This battle acts as sort of a reverse version of the lake battle, as now the Bonds are circling you, and you have to keep a steady aim on them to prevent them from blowing you out of the sky, since this time you have no choice but to carry over any damage you took in the previous segment. This is by far the toughest battle yet, but with enough perseverance and careful aiming, Mega Man destroys the Bond's mech, seemingly killing them in the process, which both Mega Man and Roll feel remorse over. With the main gate now accessible, Mega Man checks out the final area of Catalox, the Old City, a rundown, dilapidated part of town home to nothing but construction workers and vicious stray dogs. Just outside the Old City is the fabled main gate, which is frankly pretty underwhelming for a final level. It's mainly just a spiral leading you further underground, with Reaverbots sprinkled throughout and a few side areas. At the bottom, you find a locked door that leads to the core of the main gate, which requires 3 keys, of course. However, these 3 keys can only be found in 3 separate sub-cities, which have to be opened by interacting with the computer in a room about halfway down the spiral. This also grants us access to a fenced-off warehouse. Investigating it leads us to discover that the Bonds are still alive and have built one last mech to fight Mega Man with. This cutscene has a cute moment where Mega Man shows joy at finding Tron alive and ready to fight him, which makes her flustered due to her ever-worsening crush on him. This inevitably leads to a final fight with the Bonds and their massive robot, Bruno. Bruno is armed to the teeth with weapons, has an insane amount of health, and high defense, forcing you to stay on your toes and pick when the best time to go on the offensive is. After defeating the Bonds for the final time, Teasel humbly admits defeat, having grown a begrudging respect for Mega Man since no one before him has managed to cause so much trouble for him and his crew. Tron seems surprised by this change of heart in her brother, but once Mega Man is out of earshot, Teasel reveals that he actually plans to follow Mega Man into the main gate, let him do all the hard work, then steal the treasure before Mega Man can claim it. Classic Teasel. In 3 parts of Catalox, these black boxes with doors on them have appeared, which act as entrances to the sub-cities. Each sub-city is either infested with Reaverbots or houses a mini-boss, all of which must be defeated in order to unlock the buildings that house each of the 3 keys. None of these are particularly difficult, though. With all 3 keys collected, it's time to go get that treasure. But first I have another tangent to go off on. Now that the entire island is free to explore, it's actually worth it to backtrack to the ruins that you explored before. Each of them houses side areas unconnected to the main part of the dungeon you explore, which houses rare treasures, scrap that can be turned into powerful weapons, and increasingly high amounts of zenny. You'll eventually come across these cracked walls in each area that seemingly can't be destroyed, but once you get the drill arm special weapon, you can destroy them, revealing that, in actuality, every set of ruins in Catalogs is actually interconnected by a series of tunnels. This blew my mind when I first discovered this, because the idea of every area I've explored throughout the game being secretly linked together by these outside areas was something I had never even considered. Fully exploring these ruins gives you the remaining parts you need to build the most powerful special weapon in the game, the Shining Laser. Unlike previous special weapons that were mostly different kinds of explosives or artillery, the Shining Laser is, as its name suggests, a powerful laser beam that deals damage constantly as long as it makes contact with the enemy. Upgrading it fully, which takes a ridiculous amount of grinding but is definitely worth it in the long run, gives it unlimited ammo, absurd range, and increases its power so much that it can destroy bosses in mere seconds. Needless to say, this stayed equipped for the remainder of the game. After opening the final doors at the bottom of the main gate, Mega Man finds a central room containing two things: a giant refractor and a computer. Activating it awakens this guy, Mega Man Juno, who refers to our boy Mega Man Volnut by another name, Mega Man Trigger, identifying him as a purifier unit and himself as a bureaucrat unit, in charge of monitoring the population of carbons on Catalogs Island. If none of this makes any sense to you, it's not supposed to, as it was expanded on in Mega Man Legends 2. Juno notices that the carbon population, seemingly referring to the island's inhabitants, has exceeded safe levels, meaning he has to reinitialize the island using Eden, the thing mentioned in the third subgate. Eden, as it turns out, is a satellite orbiting the planet that can wipe out the populations on any island on the planet. Mega Man obviously objects to this, but Juno refuses to listen, believing that Mega Man is malfunctioning and must be destroyed. He traps Mega Man in some kind of electric snare, leaving to go give the final order to Eden. Teasel and Tron arrive in the nick of time, however, and free Mega Man from the trap, urging him to stop Juno and save the island. After all, the Bonds may be pirates, but they aren't necessarily bad people deep down. Mega Man confronts Juno in the Eden control room, leading into Phase 1 of the final battle. I beat him in a few seconds thanks to the Shining Laser. With Juno's body destroyed, he reveals that the signal to destroy the island has already been sent to Eden, and cannot be stopped as long as he still exists. He then attaches his head to a new, much larger, less Rayman-y body, leading into the final battle. I beat him in a few seconds thanks to the Shining Laser. Juno is defeated, but gloats to Mega Man that his mind is backed up in Eden, meaning that the mere destruction of his body won't stop the island's decimation. Mega Man is seemingly out of options when suddenly Data shows up. Yeah, that little dancing robot monkey that acted as nothing more than a save point and a free way to refill your life and weapon energy is the one who's really going to save the day. Data issues a command to Eden to cancel the reinitialization of Catalogs, delete Juno's mind from its database, and transfer control of Catalogs' systems to Mega Man. Mega Man is just as confused as the player presumably is, so Data tells him that he's actually a storage device for Mega Man's memories from his previous life. He can't reveal everything just yet, but promises an answer when the time is right. With Catalogs saved, Mega Man and his friends depart Catalogs Island to continue their search for the Motherlode, with all the islanders giving him a grand send-off. Before the game concludes, we get a final scene showing that the Bonds left the island on a makeshift boat with the refractor from the main gate, which they intend to sell in order to get them back on their feet and continue with their piracy. Give us a one-of-a-kind line to go out on, Bon Bon! So with all aspects covered far more in depth this time, what's my verdict? Mega Man Legends holds up well enough from a narrative standpoint, a presentation standpoint, and a gameplay standpoint, but it isn't exactly a smooth journey. The controls may require newer players who are accustomed to modern-style analog movement to unlearn everything they know and adjust to a playstyle that's much more clunky. The lack of camera control leads to moments where you can take more than your fair share of cheap hits. Being kicked to the title screen with every death with no option to continue where you left off comes off as needlessly punishing. Most of the special weapons are either too situational to get good use out of, or simply outclassed by the shining laser or even a decently upgraded buster gun. The main ruins you explored to advance the plot are too repetitive due to all of them featuring some variation on the same get 3 keys to activate a thing objective, and the voice acting, while stellar compared to Capcom's previous attempts at voice-acted cutscenes, reeks of overacting and awkward deliveries from a few members of the cast, particularly Mega Man himself. All in all, I can recommend Mega Man Legends to those who are willing to put up with some of the inherent jank that came with early 3D games, but you really have to approach it with the limitations of both the hardware and the original PlayStation controller in mind in order to fully enjoy it. Mega Man Legends never became the smash hit that Capcom had hoped for, but developed a vocal cult following which, coupled with it being then-series showrunner Keiji Inafune's favorite incarnation of Mega Man, led to a spin-off prequel with The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, a sequel with Mega Man Legends 2, a few Japan-exclusive cell phone games, and an attempt in 2010 to finally give the fans Mega Man Legends 3, which was ultimately cancelled in 2011 during the Great Mega Man Purge of the 2010s. With the Blue Bomber back in the spotlight following the release and success of Mega Man 11 and the assignment of Koji Oda as the new man in charge of the Mega Man franchise, along with statements from him that he would be open to making a new Mega Man Legends game, things are looking brighter than ever for Mega Man as a whole. If anyone from Capcom ends up seeing this video, if you're looking for another series to give the Legacy Collection treatment to, obviously Battle Network should be next. However, maybe take a look at how successful studios like Vicarious Visions, Toys for Bob, and Beanox have been with their Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon remakes, and give the Mega Man Legends series the same treatment. Primus knows these games could do with a few quality of life improvements and a visual and audio overhaul so they appeal more to gamers who didn't grow up in this awkward, experimental era of 3D gaming. Especially since, as I'm recording this, the only re-release the games have seen was on the PS3's digital store, and who knows when Sony will pull the plug on servers. Anyway, enough rambling. Take it away, Data!
Do the monkey with me! Come on! Hey there, baby.